Hello and welcome to yet another video. This is the 14th episode of the story, and a chance meeting leads Naruto Uzumaki to learn Genjutsu. Sure, he lacks talent, but once Naruto sets his mind to something, he will never give up until he completes it, and Naruto will not stop until he is a master of Genjutsu. Please like and subscribe to show your support. Now let's begin. Naruto regained his sense of vitality and energy after awakening. The combination of being single and independent was a game-changer in his life, making the preparation for workday pass quickly. Without worrying about Kurenai's emotions or loyalty, he didn't have to serve a Hokage who prioritized earning his trust over protecting it. By striking out on his own terms, he wouldn't be lost and could make it work. Naruto left his secret ward in preparation for lunch, as the morning training was going well and he had some spare time to rest. He was called to the Hokage's office at that time. With a smile on his face, he went over there to find something to do before the Akatsuki finished sealing the three tails, as if to satisfy his thirst for more. Having another mission accomplished would increase his promotion chances. Once he became a Chunin, unsure of his future aspirations, but capable of mobilizing special teams to overcome the Akatsuki's various members, thanks to his status as one of the Hidden Leaf elite. As he arrived at the Hokage's office, Tsunade was present at her desk, much like his expectation. She was accompanied by Jiraiya, but there was no indication of Shizen's presence. Tsunade inquired about your emotional state yesterday. He stooped his head off and patted his shoulders. She added, "We felt fresh out of the blue. In all honesty, I'm doing fine." Naruto's expression was a smile. "It's a good indication that you have something to say," added one. The smile on the Hokage's face transformed into a smirk. "Anecdotally you acquired some degree of respect." With a shrug, Naruto proceeded to say, "I am aware of when to take things seriously. I understand, but your constant muttering made me doubt whether you were truly a professional in the industry." Jiraiya expressed his laughter through the mouth. "I'd like to give you credit for your efforts. We didn't travel extensively to learn jutsu." I was taken aback by the color. Tsunade was leaning forward, arms pressed against her desk, and wondering whether the old pervert had to beat those rules into your head. She had a familiar look in her eyes. I wanted him to take the bait. Despite his usual willingness to take on challenges, he felt more at ease with Tsunade when they were just companions. Although Jiraiya found it amusing, his teasing was not exactly courteous. He refrained from calling Jiraiya pervy sage during their time in the company of others for the same reason. He had to maintain a decent appearance, particularly since every move he made was being scrutinized. Shizen's advice or something else had an impact on him. It's important to know how to make a good impression when you're training as ninja, right? Tsunade's head was shaken as she spoke out. You may pretend to be indifferent, but you'll never be able to completely let go of your feelings. It doesn't matter if you control your emotions or cover everything with a stone mask. Being a competent ninja requires us to learn how to handle the demands of this job. She sat down and talked. If you inquire, I'd rather express my emotions in a straightforward manner. Naruto opted not to respond to that inquiry. It's not entirely true, as he found it easier to be sincere than to keep a strong upper lip unless we want to hide our emotions, but ignoring the images it brought up. He opted to look at Tsunade's desk. A scroll and a bingo book from the hidden cloud were present on the item. I'm aware of your reputation, Tsunade replied, after recognizing his whereabouts. Despite not verifying his own entry after saving Yujito from Haiden and Kakuzu, Naruto stated that it was necessary to be. The bingo book was advanced by Tsunade. View it closely, it was delivered yesterday. The accumulation of new information leads to changes in entries, and this information is then disseminated to all relevant ninjas. His true physical description was that of Naruto Uzumaki, who weighed 66 kilograms and stood at 172 centimeters, with a current threat level of A rank, high risk of death. His physical prowess was not limited to speed, and he wasn't far from his ideal form. Naruto Uzumaki's exceptional proficiency in Genjutsu, the Shadow Clone Jutsuin, and ninjamu skills make him one of the most dangerous fighters on the planet, allowing him to quickly end fights. With his exceptional speed and sensory prowess, he is nearly impossible to break free from when nearing his target, and has the endurance to outlast even more formidable adversaries. He can also use toads as a weapon against him. Take action with great care and a well-structured approach. You're not a member of the Jinchuriki community, as indicated by Jiraiya, she said. Exciting information. Naruto asked, what is the reason behind it? Yujito's ability to reveal his chakra cloak made it possible for the Raikage to know where the nine-tailed fox was located. With her fingers clasped, Tsunade covered her mouth. The Akatsuki's lack of familiarity with the working environment results in a less well-informed workforce. The Raikage wouldn't have to assist the enemy if you were collaborating with one of his ninjas. I'm not worried about the Cloud Village either. The Raikage was quite content with the outcome of your collaboration with Samui. He won't try to undermine you as long as he has no reason to do so. Naruto's expression was elusive. Will you allow me to speak unrestricted? Tsunade's gaze was piercing, and I wondered how you could verify that. The Raikage insisted on being the representative of the leaf during this experiment. If I thought the risk was too great, I would have enlisted the services of another individual to represent us. Naruto consciously breathed his last, unwinding before succumbing to his paranoia. He glanced at Jiraiya, who gave him a single nod. Is it possible to allow Samui and Yujito to observe our fight? Jiraiya expressed a smile. Tsunade and the Raikage engaged in an arm wrestling bout a few years ago. From what I could gather, it became quite aggressive. It was true, Tsunade declared. The cheating was a result of an unreliable and underwhelming individual. Once again, she placed her hands on her desk. The reason I called you is due to your question. From what I have seen, your mission reports, and Jiraiya's advice, it appears that you are as skilled in combat as any other Chunin, according to my assessment. Naruto's smile was so intense that he almost made his face glow with excitement. I am grateful for your help, which is why I say, thank you. A smile flicked across Tsunade's face, and then it was swept away within seconds. At the beginning of our spar, you were able to use Genjutsu so confidently that I felt like I could break through it. Is it more important to prepare for a fight, or is my approach based on the knowledge of my abilities? Genjutsu was the primary weapon in Naruto's tale, according to the author. Either my opponent can't break down my Genjutsu or they waste their time trying to release it from me. Regardless, I have time to remove them or at least attempt to do so. Are you concealing your Genjutsu? Jiraiya inquired. Naruto stroked his hair with his hand. I don't have to, however, unless my opponent is skilled in detecting Genjutsu. If that's the case, I'll place the Genjutsu I want to use under a distraction. Tsunade suggested that one can either make an enigmatic display that activates spontaneously or at a specific moment in time, as per his statement. Yeah. Jiraiya swung his arms in the air. Doing that poses a significant risk. When attempting to clear an opponent's underworld illusion, it is crucial to prevent the chakra from being dislodged. You must also ensure that they are oblivious to what you're planning. I'll rely on it as my only defense. The most effective way to ensure their lack of awareness is by using a medium that they can use before it becomes too late. He had his clay, just like Deidara did. We're all close friends, Jiraiya revealed, twitching her lips. You can share what you're thinking about without any restrictions. Tsunade's expression was greeted with an eyebrow-raising look as Naruto looked at him. Tsunade sealed her forehead with my chakra. Despite not being in use, it was linked to her chakra system. The blue diamond on Tsunade's forehead caught her gaze as she looked up. It wouldn't have been effective the second time around. Nonetheless, it was a cunning maneuver. Now, let me know what you want to ask me. You had the opportunity to predict when I pushed my punches, but I could use that to control your reactions. Naruto's eyes closed as he faced an opponent trying to use his sensory abilities against him. How would you react? After that, he uncaged them. In the event that my adversary tries to deceive my sensor, I'll always have someone who can provide me with some support. In the event that your sensor is not working, would you be willing to turn it on immediately? You've gone through a lot of fights without even opening your eyes, haven't you? Jiraiya inquired. Naruto nodded as he spoke. To avoid focusing on my sensor and getting the information I need, I've been setting up a constant zone of vision all around me. Using the chakra you release from your sensor, has anyone been able to locate you? Tsunade inquired. He scowled. Oops, I heard you correctly. The person in question was able to sense him without any sensor interference, but using his sensor repeatedly made it simpler for Zokusei, the evil entity who betrayed him many years ago, to locate him. Tsunade emphasized the need for you to work on that one thing. If you're already proficient at sensing others, it's crucial to quickly understand the information provided by your sensor. You can do it all by focusing on one thing. Alright, I can assure you that, Mr. The following query is posed. You made an effort to use the Rasengan on me twice, but not once. He felt a chill run down his spine. Looking back, it wasn't the wisest choice to use a lethal ninjutsu on his boss. Additionally, you were utilizing some potent ninjutsu techniques. Why did you feel that they were required? Were you engulfed in combat? Naruto expressed briefly. In order to demonstrate my capabilities, I had to confront you face to face, but I knew that I couldn't win the battle unless I treated you as if I were an enemy who wanted to end my life. I also thought you might recover from any assaults I used. Tsunade's face was filled with happiness as she smiled. That's what I wanted you to do, she said. I fought in a way that was designed to counter your primary attacks, and therefore, I forced you to the side. Your reliance on taijutsu or kenjutsu would have compromised your ability to move with my medical knowledge. Naruto's expression was one of scowling. It appeared to be a rough period. Tsunade evaded his bigger attacks during their fight and showed that she couldn't be stopped. This technique was surprisingly effective in compelling someone to engage in a particular manner. If you had the chance to hit me with a Rasengan, if you could do so in Genjutsu, wouldn't you have pointed your tant at my neck? However, I was aware that I could manipulate the Rasengan's power. During one of my Rasengan matches, I witnessed Master Jiraiya using the sport to make someone spin around. Jiraiya explained that the object detonated upon contact, which is why it exploded. The longer the fight lasted, the more your creativity was in motion. Did you come up with a new strategy when Naruto released the wind-style Genjutsu? The blessing of thanks. I was assisted in making that jutsu work. Tsunade appeared to be frowned upon. Jiraiya was closely observing Kurenai's situation, not responding to his inquiry. She's a good match for me. Tsunade maintained her composure by looking at her and then blinking a quick answer, wondering why she asked. I'm curious to know if anyone has any experience working with me. It was evident that she had a strong interest in your welfare. I'm able to convey that information. However, I am no longer interested in the situation. Jiraiya's face revealed shock as he unblended his arms. It was effortlessly substituted with a stern frown. Tsunade, on the other hand, was scanning his face with smart brown eyes. Are you able to make that choice without any assistance? I agree. My wish is for those who are near me to be truthful. Tsunade pressed her lips tightly. While fighting, you were essentially creating new styles of wind-style jutsu on the fly. It's the way I learned it, Naruto said, referring to his education. Wind chakra was a subject of my teacher's guidance, but she also inspired me to use it in the same way as I did in Genjutsu. More than ever, Tsunade nodded as she did. Ninjutsu is an unconventional approach to training. Jiraiya stated that it is beneficial for him. Nevertheless, if you want to try it out, you must have a complete grasp of your element. If not for this, ninjutsu would require you to follow the same approach as everyone else. I acknowledge that I am aware of this. The water-style jutsu was not in his favor and he had to learn it the traditional way. Having gained a solid set of techniques, he would be dishonest about his preference for working with water and wind. Tsunade stood up straight away. When you're training, I suggest that you give more attention to discretion as your training approach. Your greatest asset is your ability to anticipate and use your judgment, but you may overstep it when it's not necessary. The combination technique you use to create the inferno is not often necessary, and once you've learned how to take advantage of your opponent's weaknesses, starting with deadly attacks becomes a bad habit. The breaking point is different for every individual. Rather than using a hammer, use pliers to hit them with the scalpel and be aware of when to release it. Is that a lie? Naruto glanced at. Yes, Lady Hokage. With a smile on her face, she placed the scroll on his desk and then handed it to him. This is the place where I'll evaluate your abilities, please scroll down to complete the article. Make use of it effectively. Your combat experience will be the next step, where I'll test your teamwork skills with a unit of equals. Samui's success in attracting attention from others means that I will assess your aptitude for leadership and command through a series of missions. His belief that he wouldn't be promoted to Chunin based on his fighting skills was valid. Let's hope that these missions won't be too demanding. During their partnership, Samui had been a great source of support for him and he wouldn't need that. Crutch. What are their responsibilities? Tsunade exclaimed, his face flushed with enthusiasm, as if swimming with a shark's blood. Uncomplicated ones. There was a sense of hope, and there it went. Naruto paused to answer, do you have any other inquiries? Tsunade's tone caused him to feel uneasy when he inquired about Kurenai. It appeared that she had not solely researched topics. Naruto inquired if you had any knowledge about Kurenai's relationship. I possess a deep understanding of the subject matter. Did she disclose the truth to you? Naruto's response was immediate. It's not a question of course. You were aware, wasn't you? Jiraiya inquired. Naruto's gaze widened to his master, with his head tilted towards him. Senior, is the only answer that remained unanswered, as Jiraiya stated. In case Kurenai was your caregiver, she would be able to notify you without activating your sensor. If Kurenai had earned your complete trust, then the news of her mission would be a disgrace and cause you great distress. It's all right, Tsunade declared. After hearing about your departure from our village, Jiraiya instructed me to conduct some research on myself. It wasn't long before I discovered the mission Kurenai was serving. Naruto inquired, what's the next? Tsunade clasped her fist. I asked her to disclose all of her activities and subsequently disclosed that her mission had been cancelled. It's not true, she didn't tell you, he said in a flat tone. If the mission was cancelled, it would indicate that she was being truthful and sincere when she said she loved him. If the mission was cancelled, why did she not tell him? Jiraiya's frown was noticed, but Naruto ignored it. Tsunade regained her composure and bowed her head. She undoubtedly refrained from doing it. She gazed at Naruto with such intensity that he wanted to flee before a response could be given. He didn't dare to do it. Naruto, I am confident that you are not disloyal to me or our village. It's your rightful owner in this place. Do not be fooled by anyone else's words. Naruto ingested thickly. The fact that Tsunade was the Hokage made him happy. I am grateful for your help, which is why I say, thank you. Tsunade's face was filled with happiness as she smiled. You're at liberty to move forward without any interference. Be mindful of what I said. He nodded his head in agreement. Jiraiya aimed a smile at him and then held his head high up at the window. Naruto would be content if he could communicate verbally. Upon reaching the Hokage monument, Naruto followed Jiraiya and stood on his father's head. The village beneath the burning October sun still had a breathtaking view, and seeing the landscape after 3 years had brought back many fond memories. He would have allowed them to take him back to a simpler time, but Jiraiya was present and so he decided to return to the present. Naruto inquired of the sensei, "What is it?" Jiraiya refrained from smiling or frowning. A thin, solid line ran across his mouth. "How did you handle Kurenai?" Naruto asked, already prepared to reveal the whole truth to Jiraiya. When he finished speaking, Jiraiya frowned. "You may have exhibited some more grace in your handling of the situation." Naruto's expression was frantic, and his anger soon turned into a frown. "Senegade, she didn't tell me the truth despite Tsunade's instructions to do so. Is it not hard for her to come clean about it?" Naruto paused abruptly. She had ample time to overcome her feelings, even though it may have been difficult. "I guess it could be, maybe. What's the next step?" She assuredly replied, "You should have known better." Naruto smirked. It would have been a tough task, but Kurenai had the ability to succeed in it. She'd been sincere, and he had appreciated that. "It's not my concern here. She has no reason to feel guilty. Despite her desire to do more, she should have done the right thing." As Naruto questioned, "Can you hear yourself?" he asked, his gaze fixed on the microphone. "Why do you feel guilty?" "She could have done her job without being in a relationship, but she screwed up on me and I had to force her into admitting wrong." Jiraiya raised a firm hand on his shoulder. "That's correct." He swung, tightly. "Sagacity is the key, and you'll find comfort in your ability to breathe." Naruto was compelled to decline Jiraiya's justifiable plea, but he didn't comply precisely because it was necessary. He breathed deeply and let out a loud sigh of relief. He breathed again and waited for an additional time. He had relaxed his breathing for the 3rd time. Despite the emotions that had surged to the forefront of his brain, they were still present and unresolvable. Jiraiya asked, "How are you?" "Equally better quality." Naruto's expression was one of a frown. "Senegade, sappy please." Jiraiya smiled and released his shoulder. "Don't be anxious about it. It's been a struggle. I just want you to think about what you did." Naruto nodded as he spoke. "I have faith in my decision to take that path. It was the right one. I'm not implying that you didn't do it, but I mean you did. You have the right to terminate Kurenai's relationship. It's perfectly fine to not want to be around her while you sort things out. I wouldn't be bothered if you never spoke to her again because of what she did to you. Yet, you could have managed your breakup more effectively. You're a ninja, right? Don't let your emotions take over the task. You could have informed her of the mission from the outset and given her sufficient time to explain it. It's possible that you could have gotten away with turning a tough conversation into an argument. If you had still been with her, you wouldn't have done it to make Kurenai feel the pain if you ended the relationship." Naruto's expression was one of a frown. Despite not knowing the whole truth, it wouldn't have been significant. Would the mission be cancelled, even though Kurenai herself had anticipated it wouldn't? She was correct in stating that everything had changed. But he was still convinced, as they both knew that she wasn't being threatened by the ghost of a loyalty mission, had not changed his mind. He made the appropriate choice to break up with her. She used nonsense to hide her feelings, including jealousy when Yujito kissed his cheek and excuses about not wanting to reveal their relationship. It was communicated that he would have dealt with her situation as efficiently as possible, according to his statement. He aimed to make things right with his girlfriend, but it was discovered that there was no justification. It was as if Kurenai had no faith in him whatsoever. "You're pondering this again," Jiraiya declared. Naruto shook his head in an instant. "When she found out that someone else had done the same thing to her, she manipulated me. That's not something I'm willing to allow to happen." Jiraiya's face was left frozen in a cold embrace after the incident. "We'll come back later," she said. Naruto recounted to Jiraiya about his date with Ino, revealing that Ino's father had dismissed him for his reputation and the relationship had ended in failure as he had not yet determined what Inkiko was trying to achieve. Jiraiya and I didn't seem to have the same conversation, which surprised him. "Kurenai was the one who aided me in moving on from that moment," Naruto said. "She was the one I first noticed after that." Jiraiya's expression was reminiscent of the brick wall. "I'm not sure if Inoichi is being polite or insincere, but it seems like he was. He ought to have a better grasp of things. He said, 'I deeply regret what I have done. I am capable of moving forward.' Can you tell me what happened with Ino? Did she regret her decision to go on a date? She apologized for her actions. It dawned on her that she was mistaken and should have refrained from doing it. I absolved her of any wrongdoing." Jiraiya's expression was accompanied by a smile. "Ah, no worries, that's what you said," he added. Naruto's scowl was heard. "Actually, I was, but not Mr. Right. A flawless outcome is achieved. Even if Kurenai apologized, it wouldn't have altered the situation. Kurenai is well known among you, and you must be aware that her actions cannot be explained by a single reason, even if you won't confess. It's conceivable that it could be. In the event that she gave him an opportunity to give her right, he could have had a positive view and given her the benefit of doubt. Jiraiya stated that he and her would have ended their relationship, but she believes they could have settled on a more positive resolution. A break, so to speak, if you prefer." He expelled approximately 90% of the air from his body. She said, "I don't have to look underneath to know where the line should be. Kurenai's decision was her own, and I opted for my own." Upon hearing those words, Jiraiya's eyes twinkled with excitement. Examining the underside of things. "Is it true that Kakashi said one of the things mentioned above?" as Naruto squinted. "Yeah." His face shook with scorn once more. "Be mindful of that and open your eyes to see if you wish. The complexity of people makes this world a complicated place. The desire for simplicity is a dream. You're only hurting yourself if you ignore someone's motives because you believe they don't matter. They are always valuable, especially when you're so close to the problem at hand." Naruto retreated and relinquished his desire to reject everything. Naruto asked, "What's the issue? Don't you believe me?" "Just saying that, I'm not sure. It's a tough task." "Don't be deluded, I am certain. It's important to step back and enjoy yourself when you're occupied with thoughts. Understanding leads to forgiveness, and forgiveness can restore trust, but understanding what someone did is not dependent on forgiving or trusting." Naruto answered with a "got it" response, despite his lack of knowledge about the matter. He had so much wisdom, he could say anything. "Good news. That's the only way you can truly move on." Jiraiya removed his hands. "Are you in communication with Samui before she departed? She expressed her willingness to be with me if we could live together in the same village. Is that okay?" He grinned earnestly, until something like a light bulb went off in his head. "It's possible that this time spent away from Samui could be advantageous for you." Naruto's expression was elusive. "What's your interpretation of this statement? Can you put all your feelings and thoughts aside, and figure out what you truly want for yourself? Samui and you would be willing to make a romantic connection that's both exciting and fulfilling, but you'd also bring your own issues. This is a recipe for disaster." Even if Naruto was certain about doing his best, he couldn't make any definitive statements. He was apprehensive about the possibility of another relationship ending badly. This time, he wouldn't have any objective of using his anger as a lightning rod for all intents and purposes. It would be unjust if Samui were to force her to help him solve his problems. Despite her efforts to assist him and provide him with complete support, she would lose her patience. Naruto responded with, "I think that's quite accurate," in response to the question. "You've written all those unusual books, after all. Isn't it important to give credit to an elderly man? I've witnessed a variety of relationships in my experience. You're a wise man, no doubt about it. Naruto's expression was a smile. I'm pleased to see you here, Senegade. I genuinely am. Jiraiya regained his cheerfulness. Just like Naruto, I also share a similar perspective. Just as I am. Jiraiya informed Naruto that he would be leaving the village to gather information on the Akatsuki's whereabouts before they parted. Despite being alone, Naruto was determined to enjoy his independence for as long as he could manage. Despite its independence, Naruto still had some issues with Samui. A significant portion of him did. She was a soothing presence on him, capable of subduing his abusive tendencies. He didn't have to change his identity to make her accept him either. It would have been great to inform her that he had broken up with Kurenai, but since she had gone back to her village far away, there was little chance of them being together again. Despite the possibility of convincing Tsunade to allow Samui's return to the Hidden Leaf, she would still need to convince the Raikage to let one of his top ninjas live in a foreign village. It was not likely that it would happen. He didn't want to let her absence ruin his day, but it was still a significant issue. He had some amazing memories with Samui and was going to treasure them. It's conceivable that he could write to her or something similar. Following a hearty lunch at Ichiraku Ramen, Naruto made plans to continue with his training. During his journey to the secret clearing, he observed someone on the brink of his sensor vision as they approached. Upon further investigation of the chakra signature, he sensed the distinct signal of an active Byakugan activity. What was the reason for Hinata's pursuit of him? Naruto opted to stay at the wilderness and listen to her. She eventually arrived and deactivated her Byakugan. Naruto inquired, "What's the matter?" Hinata kept a low profile. "Good afternoon, Naruto, greeting you. Are you occupied with your task at the moment?" "I'm not enslaved." "Excellent." She maintained eye contact with me without hesitation. Her savage expression caused him to take a momentary break. "I have a strong desire to challenge you." Naruto inquired of Hinata, "What is the reason behind your desire to fight me?" Naruto's eyes were scrutinized by Hinata. She remembered how she would squirt in her sandals and blush excessively just by looking at his face, but she had practiced it for years to control herself. She wouldn't be a mess anymore now. She said, "I want to see how far I have gone." Naruto's gaze flickered, at least temporarily. His blue eyes were awe-inspiring and constantly exuded emotion. His ability to speak honestly without fear of rejection was so impressive. "We'll engage in a 10-minute battle. No fatal blows, no external support." "Agreed, I'm told." He breathed in one breath, and when she caught sight of him, his eyes were icy as if his heart had been sealed off. "Don't hesitate to give me your opinion." The feeling of relief rippled through Hinata's limbs. Naruto guided her to a clearing with opulent waterfall that flowed into a swollen pool of water, leading to an open grassland and surrounded by trees. "I'm preparing for you when you're ready." Hinata activated her Byakugan and took up her fighting position. The second she did so, Naruto ran straight at her. They were separated by a distance of 2 hairs, and Hinata had to use his hand to point his finger at her jaw. She was capable of doing it, and her parry made him vulnerable to attack. On this occasion, she stooped on the opening and placed her right hand inside his chest. Naruto jumped to accommodate her movement, which would have made it easier for her to connect. Naruto stated that it was not bad and not a negative one. Hinata gave her a chance to smile. "I am grateful for your help, which is why I say, thank you." He was remarkably rapid, but his speed was not such that she could easily catch him. Naruto formulated a cross-fertilization scheme. 3 Narutos hurried towards her while the 4th one remained stationary, their hand concealed. As the Yin chakra was gathering around his hands, Hinata chose to attack before his Genjutsu could connect. Hinata stabbed his stomach with 2 fingers while ducking under the first kick of Naruto, causing him to burst into flames in a cloud of smoke. Hinata pushed the foot towards her stomach, swung around her fist so that it could hit her neck, and defeated the punching clone with a 2-finger pointed blow. The remaining clone found his footing and attempted a second lancing kick, but Hinata hit him with her palm instead, knocking him off his feet. Naruto had a more precise fighting style than he had during their previous encounter, but she had also developed her skills. Naruto's Genjutsu entered her chakra system at that time. She released her chakra without warning, gathered more chakra around her palm, and gazed at Naruto. "Naruto, air palm," shouted the 8th atom, sending a violent wave of chakras through the air and into the future. After her feet hit the grass, Naruto's mouth blew up in gale-force winds, propelling her faster than her own attack could have. Hinata utilized the remaining chakra from her air palm to cut through the chakra that held the wind jutsu together. The winds hit her with the same intensity as a strong wind. Naruto acknowledged that Hinata's voice was not from a specific source, but his character had improved greatly. "Excellent finds. I give my best," Hinata declared. After leaving the field, Hinata observed her surroundings and searched for Naruto's chakra signature. A sword pierced through the air, and Hinata swiftly sang in her sleep, but she managed to knock Naruto's wrist off her head without even turning. Naruto inquired, "Are you deprived of anything?" It was not the Naruki in front of her. Hinata was compelled by Naruto's sword fall, which resulted in her arching her body right of the sword. Hinata snatched Naruto's forearm and pulsed his chakra, putting an end to the clone before it could hit her face. She hurried to the waterfall, disarming Naruto's Genjutsu and ensuring that his voice was no longer being heard. All around her. It was a very clever tactic. Naruto's creativity was evident in his pranks, and he had perfected his chakra control to the point where Genjutsu was now an essential weapon. Hinata was still proud of Naruto's achievements, even though they weren't as close as she had initially assumed. She didn't let her emotions get to the point of ignoring the fight that was taking place. She had the chance to redeem herself at this moment. She would let her crush on Naruto keep her from doing anything because she couldn't bear to hurt him. She was unable to make decisions and her skills were not fully utilized, which cost her an important fight and the possibility of promotion. The fear of losing Naruto's respect was so strong that she couldn't ignore it. The individuals in her team had an understanding of why she didn't succeed, and Naruto expressed remorse by apologizing for his criticism. Even though she didn't hold him responsible, she still let him down. However, she chose to use her failure as a source of inspiration to grow. Hinata stepped into the pool knowing that Naruto was within her control, and no shadow clones were waiting to come. It began to bubble and pop, tearing up at such speed that Hinata was on high alert. In front of the waterfall, Naruto had completed a hand seal ritual and released squirting water into Hinata's wake. According to them, only 2 players were permitted at that game, and Hinata required just 3 hand seals to respond. After discovering that water chakra had gathered around her palms, she slammed it against the wave and then proceeded to split it in half while walking through Naruto's watery invasion. Shock pierced Naruto's face, but he smiled and charged at her with a group of shadow clones. Hinata, with the water under her feet, opted to demonstrate Naruto a water-style jutsu of her own. Hinata started to spin at the location, gathering a ball of water that spiraled around her and preventing the clones from getting too close so they could be destroyed. After feeling that she had drenched herself in sufficient water, she flew through the hand signals. After her last rotation, she collapsed to her knees. Hinata was shaped by the swirling vortex of water in its corral, which then proceeded to create funnel-like currents that drove Naruto's clones away from the cliff and into the surrounding waterfall. The actual Naruto had been thrown over the edge of the vortex. Eventually, he would land on the field behind her. Another creative move was made by using a shadow clone to launch him like he was about to be shot, but even as the clone killed itself to save his master, Naruto had not managed to escape completely. The orange shirt and green flak jacket were damp, and his black pants were soaked from unsightly sprays of water. Naruto inquired, "When did you become aware of that jutsu?" Hinata smacked her on the lip. It was unnecessary to inform him that Kurenai was the one who assisted her in mastering water-style techniques. Kurenai was not the only one who had sought help from her. "I created it," Hinata remarked, turning her back on the situation when she had to confront her adversary. Although she was not proficient in using the rotation in battle, her understanding of the theory behind it was well known, and dancing on the water's edge under the full moon lit up her life. Niji's valuable support enabled her to apply the theory and inspiration to produce a potent ninjutsu style. Although she didn't have a preference for water in her chakras, this jutsu had provided her with the necessary tools to proceed. Naruto's smile shone brightly, like the sun glinting through the clouds. "I'm a bit worried that I may have to deal with some of the work." Hinata placed her palm before hers. "For my sake, Naruto, please don't hesitate." Naruto's expression was a smile that never faded in his memory. "Alright, I'm not going to do it." Hinata expressed gratitude by saying, "Thank you." As she pondered, he was simply attempting to undermine her defenses. His chakra was so extensive that he could spend time wearing her down. Despite their time-limited battle, Hinata might not have won since Naruto had granted her immunity. Naruto lived up to his word, and the next 5 minutes were some of the most brutal Hinata moments ever witnessed. She refrained from enduring uncontrollable winds and sweeping gales. Instead, she eliminated numerous clones and dispelled all Genjutsu. Naruto's attempts to inflict harm on her when she sensed a shift in her instincts. Despite her lack of experience, she was incapable of pursuing the real Naruto without losing precious time and setting a trap that his chakras wouldn't escape. The situation worsened as he was getting closer to finding a way to break through her defenses. Her close-up shave gave her an opportunity to hit Naruto, but this time only with a clone. The level of annoyance is truly exaggerated. Naruto found the situation to be a perfect stalemate, as she expended more chakra than his own body to avoid harm, yet he was unfazed by it. It was in less than a minute that she had the opportunity to turn this battle around. It was necessary for him to have a vulnerability that he could leverage. What was she aware of his sensory abilities? He used chakra to sense it by simply closing his eyes. Her ability to conceal her own chakra signature could be advantageous, but she wasn't entirely sure how to do it. She looked towards the waterfall. The waterfall released an almost inexhaustible drop of water, a faint mist that formed from the impact of the pool and its fall. It's conceivable that Naruto made a move, but she didn't want to confront him on the ground. With her legs stretched out, Hinata sprinted towards the pool as quickly as possible. Naruto pursued her onto the waterfall, sword poised, and Hinata raised her head to launch an air palm at her. Naruto was right behind her at that moment. Hinata slammed her hatch into the water and splashed everything in front of her with the power of Herculean assault. Hinata executed a lengthy hand seal behind the makeshift cover, and just before Naruto could reach her, she reached the final seal she required. Hinata used her chakra to spread water throughout the battlefield, covering herself, Naruto's clone, and the true essence of Naruki by using water veil. 2 rapid jabs were delivered, and she triumphed over the Naruto in front of her. Her veil was invisible to everyone, except for her. Afterward, Hinata wrapped her chakra around her legs and dashed to the summit of the waterfall, jumping as high as she could where Naruto was hiding out in the trees. If she were Kiba, she would probably be prone to spinning like him, but her stomach needed to rest on the ground below. Hinata approached Naruto's plane and drew closer to him. He was engulfed, and Hinata placed her chakra around her palms for a massive last blow. Naruto smiled, gentle step, twin lion fists, and while it was a nice smile, it wasn't as Hinata's favorite. After he fell onto his stomach, Hinata had to use her lion-shaped chakra fists to break the tree with his split-second sprawl. By freeing herself from the chakra that powered her attack, Hinata pressed her palms into the bark of the next tree and chased Naruto down the falling tree. He had pushed himself up and out of the tree, gathering his wind chakra. When he finally managed to blow the mist away, she was within her reach. With 8 trigrams, Hinata unleashed 32 palm strikes as she dominated Naruto with her initial 2 hits on the wind-style jutsu. Her face lit up with a smile. "I finally slapped you on the head and said, 'This is what I did for you.'" Naruto stumbled before collapsing face down into the dirt. Smoke did not enter his body. She released any genjutsu that Naruto might have placed on her, as a precautionary measure, after she triumphed over him. The sensation of cold steel against her neck was the reward she received. Her arms were seized by 2 clones. The sight of Naruto lying on the grass caused him to fade into obscurity. Naruto asked, "Are you a submitter?" and whispered the answer into her ear. Due to her inability to release chakra from any of her tenketsu, which Niji had, she was left stranded and powerless. "I yield," Hinata declared. After being released by Naruto's clones, the individual behind her moved his sword away from him. The act of covering the clearing with mist was a cool move, Naruto declared. After a few seconds, the sun started to burn down the mist that formed her jutsu. Unlike the hidden mist jutsu, her jutting was not intended to preserve a mist but rather to disperse her chakra signature in a way that Naruto would be unable to see, even if she moved through it. Although she had used the water veil jutsu before, she hadn't felt the need to improve it because she rarely needed to use it. Hinata's face lit up with a smile. "I am grateful for your help, which is why I say, thank you. It wasn't enough to get past you, though." Naruto's expression was one of pure amusement. "Your lion palms were the reason for your lack of recognition." Her gaze broadened and widened. She said, "Oh, I see." She began to blush. "I got engrossed in my surroundings. We are all familiar with this. Being a hard worker was not always easy for you. I caught you in that genjutsu only because you became distracted from crushing that particular tree." Hinata positioned her hands around her waist and wrapped them around each other with her fingers. "It was a struggle to understand what you were up to." "I make an effort," as Naruto said, she remarked. He extended his hand. "Hinata, let's face it. You were fantastic." Hinata looked at the hand that was offered, and then admired Naruto's earnest smile. Taking it, she felt his calloused palm turn softly around the center. "Naruto, I am grateful for your contribution to the story. The words that come out of you imply a deeper meaning than what you actually hear." Hinata appeared convinced of her ability to defeat Naruto, and despite not succeeding in the battle, she had completely made herself whole. Hinata was the first to let go of Naruto, as she felt his weight against her back and became extremely chilly. She breathed deeply, sensing the heat of a good workout and the strain caused by pushing her physical limits. "In fact, there's another reason why I wanted to come see you. I don't know what it is." Hinata hung up her boots and asked, "What the hell is this?" She couldn't allow herself to be hesitant about what she wanted to say at any point in time. "Were you in a relationship with Kurenai-sensei?" His expression changed from cold to silent, completely disguising his face. "Enthralling. Sorry, but that's not something you care about. She is also my sensei. May I ask if you could give me an explanation of who I am? It is possible for you to instruct me to cease at any given moment." His eyes were bored into her whole body, but Hinata remained upright. "Is this a matter of concern for you?" He bowed his head in a serene manner. "Fine. Thank you for your contribution. After our match, it kicked off. I was comforted by Kurenai-sensei when he explained what you did. Her level of familiarity with you was greater than she would have liked. It was also revealed that she had been instructing you in Genjutsu. Like her, you use Genjutsu extensively." Naruto's gaze became smaller as his vision narrowed. Isn't it true that I was with her? I noticed that you gave her a glance when we were at the training ground with our former classmates. I thought you were interested in my sensei, but then something unexpected occurred that made me question whether you had a crush on him. After a few days of our mission to retrieve Sasuke Uchiha, Kurenai-sensei stormed away from Ichiraku Ramen in Japan. Despite her apparent emotional state, she refused to disclose the reason for it, so I followed her to your house. She entered without checking your presence, but it was discovered that you had already left the village. As expected, that's accurate. His shoulders were tense and threatened, leaving Hinata vulnerable. The intensity of his entire demeanor was such that it would indicate her progress on the right track. She was hesitant about her actions, but she wouldn't give up. Before you departed, Kurenai-sensei appeared unhappy, but she wouldn't disclose the reason to me or my teammates, acting as if nothing was wrong and pretending otherwise. Despite his jaw clenching, he seemed to be holding himself back and not speaking. Despite allowing her some time to cool off, she proceeded with a series of missions, and it took several months before I finally had the chance to communicate with her. While she was away, I asked Kiba if he had ever detected any amusing aromas in Kurenai-sensei. He did it. He detected a metal scent around her left wrist, and some residual remnants of your fragrance. I had the impression that you were just training together, but I can at least remember her having a moment of pure joy. Hinata's cheeks were a bright shade of red. A red dot on her neck. Hinata asked if she meant the hickey. As for now, I'm not sure what it meant, she said. A faint red fleck lit up Naruto's cheeks, but he had not responded to the incident. Upon her return from her missions, she was adorned with a bracelet bearing her name, featuring alternating yellow gemstones and rubies. Before she could reject me, I asked her questions about you. Her answer elicited Hinata's frown, which was, what did she say? It was not my concern to deal with. I never expected Kurenai-sensei to be so unfriendly towards me, which made me suspect that you had caused her some harm. According to Naruto's growl, I didn't comprehend. She was already aware that he was right, so she wouldn't respond to it. I inquired Kurenai-sensei about her social status, and I presented the proof I had discovered to myself. It didn't appear to be feasible, but the only clue I could find was that she had a boyfriend she wanted to keep quiet, and this boyfriend was you. Naruto's laughter was accompanied by a creepy and unsettling tone. Hinata, you have some great insights to share. To be honest, I mean it. What did she express? She confessed it. Hinata's expression became more pronounced with each passing glance. The memories that were revealed were far from being pleasant. I inquired of her why she dated me. She was your teacher, and she was much older than most of us. She was aware that Hinata had a crush on Naruto. She chose not to respond to my inquiries. She stated that her reasons for dating you were irrelevant now that you had passed away, and she should never bring up the matter again. Hinata's introduction of her crush caused Kurenai to feel remorse, but it was later subdued in intense anger that she never articulated. I granted her permission, but the damage was already done. Kurenai-sensei kept her distance from me and my fellow fighters. It was only after an incident with an old student of hers that we finally had the chance to reconcile. Naruto's expression was a grim one, as he frowned. I'm sorry to hear that you had to deal with all that negativity. Her realization that you had a crush on me left Hinata gasping and completely upset. You were aware of that, you may have pondered. He rubbed the back of his neck. I'm sorry it came out this way, oh my God. You were entitled to a better treatment. She regained her composure and shook her head in frustration. It's a different situation altogether as it stands today. It's fine. Kurenai-sensei expressed interest in dating me, but even she didn't disclose her feelings. My happiness was a result of it, and I never thought about how you would feel upon discovering this fact. To tell the truth, I was under the impression that you wouldn't want to communicate with me. Hinata's expression was negatively impacted by his reaction. I don't think it was your fault. His face was encircled by a mean-spirited smile. You're correct, my friend. There was another rationale for why she rekindled our romance. Why, Naruto, do you shrugged off the question? In Ordnung, that's all right. Lord Third's mission to secure my loyalty to the Leaf was the only reason she dated, according to her. Hinata reacted by covering her mouth with her hand to conceal her shock. You're under the impression that you can tell me this. I'll take this back if I didn't do anything wrong. It's a good thing. The idea of Naruto being betrayed was a daunting task, but Hinata gained insight into Kurenai's decision to date him. Despite the disappointment, she was already aware of Kurenai's abilities. I'd like to apologize for that. I sincerely am. This is undeserved, and you've failed to do anything about it. He smiled at her with a small expression. Thanks to all of you. It's expected, but I didn't want to engage with her. She had turned me down before, so I needed to use the truth to cut ties with her. She had only partially comprehended the last part, as the mention of cold feet reminded her of the hickey, and she covered her mouth to conceal her flushing. She was unable to handle the fact that they had gone too far, not only with the images it created. Upon discovering her own relationship, she confessed, I can't believe that you were dating. Naruto smirked in wonder. It's a common occurrence for me to feel the same way. In the end, it's all too apparent, I ended our relationship and informed her of her goal. Hinata experienced a sense of unease in her mind. In her apartment, she had visited Kurenai earlier in the morning and found a woman sprawled on her couch with bottles of alcohol scattered across the living room table. Kurenai had a fondness for drinking, but this was too much to bear. You responded, she said, as a sign of her determination. She said, I gave her exactly what she wanted. Hinata looked up at Naruto and smirked in disgust. I don't think she deserved it, but I can't fault her for feeling the way you do. He remained silent. Hinata had done all she could to assist her sensei, and as a result, she refused to speak with her. Hinata was aware of the visible signs of injury and that she had been severely injured. She was truly moved by the sight when she first laid eyes on it, but it seemed like this was a way of making amends for her actions towards Naruto. Naruto went to the extent of resolving her own grievances. You asserted that you had reconnected with Kurenai. How did she manage to stay true to her beliefs and why? Sure, I need some time. Naruto surveyed her and then made a substantial momentary step back. He observed his feet. Sorry, that's not what you were thinking about. It's fine. Prior to our reconciliation, I discovered that Lord Third had instructed Kurenai-sensei to seal the chakra of her former student before her power seized her. Despite her love for her student, Kurenai-sensei had to make a tough choice as she wanted to protect her, even if it meant harboring animosity towards her. Naruto's mouth was ajar. I wasn't alone. It appeared to be normal. Even though he had more luck than Kurenai's former student, it still happened to him. What's the aftermath? Kurenai-sensei expressed regret for her retaliation, saying that she was sorry and apologized for what she had done. She stated that she was going through a tough time and was mistaken to treat me so severely. I opted to pardon her. Regardless of the mission, she expressed her love for you when I asked her about her feelings towards me. Naruto's face transformed, and Hinata could perceive the pain and agony he concealed from everyone. His face was etched with emotions of heartbreak, betrayal, and numerous other sorrows, for reasons that only dawned on her, but he breathed deeply, then found himself suddenly covered by a cold masked face. Her heart was swollen with envy for him. Naruto inquired of Hinata, what's the point of this? Why should I disclose this to you? Hinata smiled, hoping she could help him relax in some way. Naruto, I was unsure of what to make of you. You changed in ways I couldn't even imagine, but you still apologized to me because you thought you hurt my heart. I am grateful for your assistance in saving my life. You created this savage image, but you were still approachable to others. I thought you had caused harm to Kurenai-sensei, but it was actually you who suffered the injury. I had two thoughts about you, and I wanted to know which image of yours was the true one. Naruto's eyes flickered, refracting like a flame of insight. What did you uncover? Despite everything, Naruto, you continue to inspire me. You're still searching for a solution to the issues you've been dealing with, even though everything else seems fine. You're always striving, he declared. I'm committed to staying true to my word, and I don't ever doubt myself about that. I acknowledge that I am aware of this. Naruto, I am here to lend a hand. Naruto's smile softened as he spoke, his mouth was opened wide. To be honest, I'm aware that she had valid reasons for what she did, but it's difficult to believe when you're the one experiencing these emotions. The time elapsed makes me want to reflect on the experiences we had, but I'm uncertain about how much longer that will be. I am unable to forgive her. Although it may come across as immature, I'm determined to steer clear of certain things. Forgiving someone is a divine act, just as it is for them to do wrong, Hinata declared. If you're determined to move on from her, I'll provide the means. If you ever want to talk to her, I'll do that too. I never relinquish my promises and commit to living up to them. My ninja way of doing things is also how I do it. Naruto's expression was one of pure happiness, as he smiled. That's really impressive, Hinata. Thanks. She exclaimed. Naruto, anything to say? Tsunade reported that Haiden and Kakuzu of the Akatsuki were seen in the Land of Fire 2 days after their last encounter. Her face was tightly draped with a grimace that tugged at her forehead. At her side, Shizun was equally stern. Naruto's heart raced in a racing pace as he felt his chest tighten. This was precisely what he desired to hear. They were said to have stayed in the Land of Fire to conduct their own business, but their movements indicate otherwise. We won't be giving you permission to go to the village because they want you. Your task is to locate them and apprehend them. Engage, not murder. It made Naruto's blood boil over when he was instructed not to kill the Akatsuki. The only thing that could help anyone from the Akatsuki was to die by detonation. He took a deep breath and let it out. What is your reason for wanting them to be taken? He asked. The gaze of Tsunade was more intense than the one exerted on him. The Akatsuki's purpose and personnel are still a mystery to us. Rather than finding a way to eliminate them, it would be preferable to question the so-called immortals. That's a good point to make. That's a good point to make. Deidara and Sasori were not interrogated by them, so the more information about the Akatsuki, the easier it was to defeat them all. He believed that killing them was the most effective way to defeat them, but if they were to capture Haiden and Kakuzu, he would disregard his desire for revenge. I am cognizant of this statement. Are you prepared to accept this task? She expressed even more apprehension, and Naruto comprehended the message. Tsunade was granting him the chance to lead this mission, rather than just participating. I am receptive to the idea that it's true. Lady Hokage, thank you for giving me the opportunity. As she nodded and embraced her camera, Tsunade's expression changed to a small smile. We extend a warm welcome to you. She placed her hand over a manila folder and waved it to herself. I compiled a list of ninjas that are currently accessible for missions. 3 of them will be helpful to you. I've put my suggestions on the table. Shizun's file was positioned at the top, with the red kanji for recommended. He gazed at her from a higher vantage point. Hi Shizun, would you like to join us? She smiled. Naruto, I'd be delighted to. It was a simple choice. He had previously worked with Shizun and was well informed about her medical skills and proficiency in poisoning. She gained a significant amount of valuable mission experience over the years. With a smile on her face, Tsunade seemed to approve. What would happen if I asked Tsunade to be on my team? At least he knew from looking at that folder she wasn't even on it. Even if she was, her role as commander-in-chief would make her much more effective than those in charge of the front lines. If Tsunade didn't acknowledge her desires, would she make a difference? Maybe, but not likely since she allowed him to pick his suitors, which meant he could disregard her advice entirely. Despite his lack of intelligence, he carefully scrutinized the other ninja files that lacked Tsunade's endorsement. There were not all ninjas on this list who were ready to go on missions, and there was not only one genin but every alumnus that made at least 3 A-rank missions. If Jiraiya was on the list, it would be easier to choose him than to breathe, but he wouldn't be available. Although it was unusual to collaborate with his master, the Toad Sage's combat prowess and extensive battle experience made him a sought-after figure among the elemental nations. The Leafs were the only ones who could match their compatibility. If not for her choice, Naruto would have sworn off. In spite of this, he had the freedom to choose his second teammate, which was advantageous given his selection. Naruto's focus on compatibility led him to concentrate on what was being offered. To succeed, he needed colleagues who would complement his combat experience, collaborate with other players on his team, and possess qualities that would guarantee the capture of Haiden and Kakuzu. If the strongest ninja had terrible personalities or some other flaws, why would one be interested in them? Even though they were part of a dangerous mission, being Genis wasn't always possible. He was unable to choose someone he could have a good relationship with, but who lacked the necessary skills to carry out the task. Igeo was on the list, and she had both experience and strength, but Shizune was a more skilled medic than her. And her mastery of Genjutsu did not meet his expectations. Her fiancé Hayate was also present, but he was out for comparable reasons, as well as Naruto's first time seeing him. The list featured 4 members from his graduating class, 2 of whom were part of Team 8, and both of them had exceptional tracking abilities. Shino's exceptional abilities in capturing and tracking made him a unique type of Genin. If Haiden had been the only ninja to successfully capture him, Shino would have been an easy target as Kakuzu's main focus was on advancing through large areas with powerful Kakache. Shino had the ability to evade their destruction through his own elemental ninjutsu, but the likelihood of being crippled was still quite significant. Hinata didn't have as much experience as Shino, but she did possess exceptional defense and sensory abilities through her Byakugan. The main concern was that if Kakuzu caught her with his tendrils, she would have a tough time escaping. Naturally, she would have to be caught first. He double-checked and found Kiba's name on the list. He was a superior tracker to Hinata, but his abilities were limited to close-range combat, which wasn't necessary. It was a shame that Kakashi wasn't on the team. His versatility and experience made him a perfect match for Kakuzu's numerous abilities. Unfortunately, he was currently engaged in an A-rank mission with Sakura, Niji, and Anko. Through his questioning about them, he discovered that each of them had the appropriate aptitude for the task, even though Sakura and Shizune's medical skills were similar. His sole option was to rely on the resources available to him. The benefits of being a ninja are numerous. Nevertheless, his selection was so limited that he would choose to have Shino and Hinata as his 2 choices, but only one. Consequently, he carried out the task. "Is it necessary for me to have more help?" Naruto inquired. Tsunade nodded in response. "I've arranged for a backup team to be sent out, but you can trust that they will make an early entrance when they discover the enemy. We don't want to intimidate them." Her expression brought a smile to her face. "At least you're aware of this, my dear friend. Make arrangements to arrive at the village gates in half an hour." 10 minutes before the scheduled meeting, Naruto arrived at the village's towering gates as the first person to enter. "Naruto," he asked, "are you there?" He nodded in response to the voice that was so familiar, and yes, Kotetsu and Izumo were guarded by him today. Naruto inquired, "How's it going, guys?" Kotetsu's expression was one of pure happiness, as he smiled. "This is a non-complaint." Izumo stated that it's a gradual process. Nevertheless, that translates to it being in a peaceful state of being. Naruto's laughter was quite amusing. I expected you to be concentrating on your work. We can concentrate and unwind concurrently. Izumo is correct, Kotetsu declared. The weather is looking good today. The breeze swayed and let out a sound. A clear blue sky provided a backdrop for the large white puffy clouds. It was a pleasant day to lie down and unwind, as they were correct. Naruto had the opportunity to recuperate and rejuvenate himself after a 4-day absence, which was more than enough time for him to do so. He was so excited that the only way he could stand still was by forcing himself to do it. What's your goal? Izumo inquired. Is it classified? He asked with a breath of air. Haiden and Kakuzu, both belonging to the Akatsuki range, are being pursued for their missing members. Both of them grimaced, removing the relaxed atmosphere from the guard house. Izumo inquired, do you believe they are worthy of your pursuit? Naruto gave Izumo a glance in the eye. It's up to someone to prevent them, and that person will be me. Izumo's expression was characterized by a deep-seated frown and lingering suspicion. If you are unsuccessful and caught, they will arrest you. They are not going to be able to do anything about it. There's no doubt about your ability, but be cautious, Kotetsu remarked. They're the most remarkable people we've ever encountered. You arrived just in time to save us, but you won't be as lucky a second time. Alternatively, for the third time, I would suggest trying something else. Nevertheless, Naruto nodded in agreement. I won't overlook their value. I am aware that I can cause them pain and remorse by following my example. As Kotetsu looked at him, Izumo's expression changed to a smile before his frown surfaced. Naruto, you've made a significant contribution to the world. Naruto's teeth were exposed as he smiled in a jaundiced manner. I still have a long way to go, she said. Izumo stated that once you're cured, you can return to being alive. The fear that Naruto felt was a natural response for Izumo when he encountered anyone from the Akatsuki realm. He lost his way when he gave up on it and let anyone from the Akatsuki go. That fear was the driving force behind his determination to win. He gave them a thumbs up. I promise to do it. Believe it or not. Izumo's expression was characterized by a small smile on his face. It's time to say, you better take care of your health. A familiar chakra approached him after a brief moment of silence. Naruto asked, are you prepared for today's mission, Hinata? Hinata's face lit up with a smile. I'm willing to go through with this and have no hesitation whatsoever. The fact that the last person he selected was the first to come to him was quite pleasant. Hinata and Shino were both formidable candidates for the position, as they would have made a great team. Nonetheless, he was aware from their fight 2 days prior that Hinata's gentle fist techniques could repel ninjutsu, and her power to disable chakra points couldn't be ignored, particularly when an enemy was trapped or blindfolded. The verdict on his fate was uncertain, but he couldn't make excuses for not doing so. Are you prepared, Naruto? Hinata inquired. Naruto smiled intently at her. I was born with a ready temperament. It's clear to me that she could do that, too. Hinata was shrewd, and it had made her aware of things that were not right for her. He didn't anticipate telling her about the mission, but the news of its cancellation and the possibility of sharing the information made him feel at ease. Knowing about Hinata's love life, she was able to uncover the complete truth. Her words to him were quite enlightening. He was able to trust his instincts and transform his past experiences into a satisfying conclusion through their conversation. Thanks for your presence, Naruto, he said. It's going to be a challenging experience. It's important to keep in mind that the Akatsuki are not playing by any rules. His pale eyes were tightly held by Hinata. It's clear to me that I have knowledge of this. Despite this, I was picked for this role and will make every effort to ensure our success. Once more, he smiled. Exquisite. In fact, he was grateful for Hinata's help, not just for this mission. Her demeanor was described as pleasant, with physical and mental strength that complemented her easygoing personality. He could have rekindled her feelings and investigated the possibility of becoming his girlfriend or something more. He didn't feel the same way about Hinata, even though he had already ended a relationship. During their training session yesterday, he shared his same message with her to ensure that her attraction towards him wouldn't be overshadowed by their relationship. Fortunately, she managed it skillfully. During the time that had passed before their mission began, he could only talk about what they had done during his absence from the village. They were simply friends, there was nothing to worry about. He was unaware that Tsunade and Shizune were approaching the village gates. Shizune donned a long-sleeved outfit that was typical of her ninja attire. Lady Hokage said hello, as per Hinata. "Good morning, Shizune." "Hinata, welcome," Shizune remarked. Tsunade's face lit up with a smile. "It's good to see you back." Their last teammate arrived just then, with an unusually serious expression on his face. A short tantrum was induced on his lower back. "We're all here," Tsunade declared. "Shikamaru, I'm glad you could join us," Naruto said. Shikamaru looked at him with composure. "According to my words, Naruto, I have your back." Shikamaru was required to accompany him on this mission due to various reasons beyond his abilities. He wished to give Shikamaru the opportunity to experience defeating an Akatsuki member, as it would be the first official collaboration between them. "Get ready to go," Tsunade declared. The rest of Naruto's team did as well. "Your objective is to capture Haiden and Kakuzu, and I am confident that each of you will do their best. Nevertheless, if you are under the impression that you cannot accomplish the mission within its parameters without risking your life, then I permit you to withdraw. If Naruto is about to be captured, I instruct you to take all necessary actions to halt his capture. We have the resources to make another attempt, but your safety is our top priority. Have I affirmed my position before?" "Yes, ma'am," the entire group said in unison. "Excellent. We're taking a chance by bringing Naruto within reach of the Akatsuki, but I don't believe we can accomplish this without feeling confident. Bring Haiden and Kakuzu back to the Leafs." Haiden and Kakuzu found themselves in a barren expanse of trees, with no leaves or any other form of shade. Byakugan, located on Hinata's north end, allowed her to observe their location from a considerable distance of 10 kilometers. It was time to take action. Naruto was the first to run. He split into 5 and blew winds that reached up to gale force from a distance of 500 meters. As he had planned, it caught their gaze, and Kakuzu utilized his own hand to block the wind. Haiden chased after 2 of Naruto's clones with a manic grin, successfully fleeing from behind. Kakuzu breathed deeply and launched a massive ball of fire at Naruto's remaining clones, but Naruki was ahead in his game and released the scroll that Shikamaru had given him. The scroll was filled with water as he worked on it, creating a massive wall of water that choked the fireball. The water wall was invaded by several clones, with one of them forming a Rasengan effect. With a powerful punch, Kakuzu pummeled the Rasengan-wielding clone before taking hold of Naruto's remaining relics with abnormally long arms and knapsacks. By using his scythe and skillful footwork, Haiden was able to eliminate all but one of his own clones, ultimately leading to the death of the final one. Naruto rubbed his throat and took a deep breath. So far, everything seems to be going smoothly. Haiden asked, "Are you all alone?" before heading back to Kakuzu. He had not made a significant impact. Hinata looked on as Naruto said, "I thought you were going to kill us." She was prepared to strike, but if she had knowledge of his tenant, she wouldn't have spoken out. Despite Kakuzu's arm extensions, they came to a stop just before the tendrils extending them could be returned to his body. "Ahem, how frustrating," he declared. Haiden inquired, "What's going on with Kakuzu?" He made an effort to move, but he couldn't. Shikamaru stood a few meters away from them, with his hands resting on the rat seal's chest and telling him to never again. Dust and other earthly debris were present around his feet. Complete the shadow possession. Naruto immediately removed Kakuzu's wind chakra mask and threw 2 smoke bombs at him. The Akatsuki couple was completely covered in blue smoke as they awaited. Despite her face being covered by a mask, Hinata ran into the smoke and struck Kakuzu's chakra points with precision. Kakuzu's back was ripped apart and something suspended high into the sky, blowing smoke away with his chakra like a violent breeze. When the dust had settled, Kakuzu and Haiden were still attached to the ground as Hinata hurried back, but the creature that Kakupa had secreted was still hovering over him, about to attack Shikamaru. Not visible on his watch. The monster was forced to swerve in response to Naruto's burning fire. Naruto's son Shikamaru ejected and burst into flames after sinking into the earth. Naruto expressed that it was a good job and an excellent move. Shikamaru nodded as he spoke. We'll have to give it a shot once more. Appears to be true. We've only just started. Hinata and Shizun reunited at their base. After a short time, Shizun administered an antidote into Hinata's bicep and then placed hands covered in green chakra over her arm. Plan B is what we're executing, Naruto declared. His teammates nodded in agreement. While Haiden frowned, the monster returned to Kakuzu's side for their adversary. What's the smoke? I can feel itching all over my body and really hurt. What's your opinion, Kakuzu? The smoke bomb that Shizun injected into the mouth and skin caused Naruto's muscles to be paralyzed. Shizun confirmed that Hinata was okay. Fortunately, you weren't in contact with the gas long enough for it to have so much damage. Hinata removed her mask and nodded in agreement. Thanks, Shizun. Shizun advised Naruto to let Hinata wait for the smoke to set in, but the delay was not necessary. If this strategy were to be successful, the risk would be justified. It was not. Despite this, it was beneficial to have Shizun present to lessen the impact of working with hazardous materials. Without her medical skills, he wouldn't even consider trying this. As an illustration, Kakuzu initiated the act of grabbing his throat as foam emanated from his mouth and his eyes were bloody. Blood oozed from his nose as the monster towered over its master, an unsettling ghostly entity that resonated with the wind energy in every tendril. Despite its impotence, it couldn't accomplish anything to save Kakuzu, instead opting for its white mask. Naruto opted for smoke to divert attention or provoke anger rather than poison, but his loyalty was undermined by the continual suffering of Kakuzu, who persisted in fighting and showed no signs of abstaining from his beliefs. Shortly after, Naruto put his arm around himself. If the situation were reversed, Kakuzu would do that and much more harm than good. Haiden inquired, what in the hell? Shut up, Kakuzu. Haiden was the embodiment of good health, unlike his partner. It's a shame that neither Haiden nor Kakuzu could incapacitate their chakra points or risk losing their entire mission. Their strategy involved distracting the Akatsuki pair, which Shikamaru used to bait them and use smoke bombs to paralyze them, causing Hinata to disable their chakra and prevent them from protecting themselves. Subsequently, they would assemble with their reinforcements and head back to the village. The idea of a masky creature entering the fray was unimaginable to him. Kakuzu was just about to collapse when the masked creature leaped into his body. The windscreen on his back shattered, and 3 equally terrifying creatures attempted to escape Kakuzu's corpse. In contrast to the wind-based creatures, the masked beasts that guarded their master were made up of fire, water, and lightning chakras. Before reaching Haiden and Kakuzu, Hinata confirmed that Naruto's fears were true as he sensed that the chakra signatures in his body corresponded to his heart's. Despite any physical alteration, Kakuzu was capable of possessing all 5 chakras as if they were his own. To make matters worse, they could act independently. Haiden reacted with a happy expression. Your village was once a threat to me, but Lord Jashin has now granted me the opportunity to see you today. Naruto's calmness was restored by the swift smoothing out of the situation. If it were as simple as beating them, they wouldn't be considered S-rank ninja. They had no reason to be worried as they knew what they were being exposed for. Naruto remarked, "Discuss the strategy." Lightning erupted from the mouth of the lightning mask, and Naruto's team attempted to flee in 3 different directions to escape the explosion. They would make sure that Kakuzu was separated from Haiden before he could wake up. The masked beast's presence made things more complicated, but they could adapt to their surroundings. It is crucial to ensure that none of them are standing on water or lightning masks in close proximity to the water. Naruto uttered the words, "Hinata. We can shape the water." Hinata remarked, "It's fine." They combined their chakra and the still water created a swirl that propelled it towards the fire mask. The water mask got in the way and created a water rush that shielded its opponent's heart, cancelling out the 2 jutsu but dispersing the liquid from their body. Hinata's ability to assist him in strengthening his water-style jutsu didn't make it sound like a collaboration jib with one of the Toads or Samui, but it was cool nonetheless. Hinata and Naruto split up with a common nod, as 3 clones followed her as she reached the water mask. Haiden made an effort to pursue Naruto, but Shikamaru's shadow retreated and he was forced to withdraw. Haiden was knocked off his feet by a gust of air that Naruto expelled with force, causing him to tumble and fall before he recovered. Shizune was nearer, so he focused on her. Shikamaru persisted in avoiding him as he made contact with the shadow fork and attempted to locate the evil ninja. If Haiden had approached Shizune, which he did, she would be capable of fending off his assaults. She was able to create her own shadow clone and join Naruto by using 2 conjoined trees as cover, so that Haiden wouldn't notice the shift. Shikamaru and the actual Shizune were gradually guiding Haiden away from Kakuzu. Naruto explicitly stated that Haiden would not be able to receive any amount of their blood. After encountering him twice in 2 attempts, Haiden was able to activate his rituals without any hesitation. Given that Hinata was competent in separating the water mask from its allies, Naruto turned his attention to it. The fire mask flew in front of its handler, causing him to aim towards Kakuzu's prone position before firing at close range. After turning his engine on, he dashed behind a dead tree that was promptly burned down. Fortunately, he was split into 3 sections before the mask emerged and began to bite. The only means of pursuing his clones was with a fire mask, while the lightning mask safeguarded Kakuzu. Smart. Nonetheless, incompetent to emerge victorious. This was a barren area, with only the bone-white trees serving as evidence of the once thriving vegetation. Hinata quickly realized that she had a drawback: she couldn't find any other cover besides the enormous tree trunks. However, with the assistance of Naruto's clones, she could draw out the disguised creature that emerged from Kakuzu's body and eliminate it. It was easier to say than done, for the masked beast had such an amazing talent with his water chakra that it could create bodies of water without using any water source. She coordinated the 3 Narutos to avoid being swept away by her. The masked creature's action of spraying water into a tree that she had hidden behind, barely missing her head, worked in her favor. The tree was sliced from left to right without any interruptions. Before it could hit her, she had to roll over herself, leaving her vulnerable enough for the masked creature to unleash a watery bullet that bounced around like he was about to do. Hinata swung the water chakra that was surrounding her palm onto the bullet and caused it to catch fire. She gasped and held her hand up to her chest. Despite a nasty red streak in the middle of her palm, an experimental shake proved that it could still work. Despite the pain, she didn't want to let it cripple her due to the lack of time. Hinata pursued the masked creature, maneuvering around its bullets. The animal did not have any chakra points on its surface, but its flock of tendrils was bound together by chakras. It would be destabilized by a single hard blow. The challenge was getting close to it, as it impeded her progress with falling water bodies and necessitated that she avoid lasers like jets that would tear her apart if they were joined together. The distance between her and the beast was too great for any serious injury, but she managed to move closer towards it. At the last moment, she only saw an approaching drilling bullet, hidden behind a tall pillar that she had cut off to avoid being attacked by the beast. By touching her stomach, she was able to release tons of water droplets and fall off her feet. She let out a yelp, and her lungs were filled with air. The bullet's tip pierced through her lavender shirt, leaving a bruise that was rapidly developing. It could have been a much worsening of the situation. The only indication of her consciousness was that she slammed the bullet into her chest when it hit. She slowly regained her balance and stood up. She could fight if she didn't feel the pain. A clone of Naruto utilized the water concealed to create a spell that collected all the unrevealed pools of water into one potable force. To assist Naruto in his attack, Hinata gathered some water to drink. Together they were able to put pressure on the masked beast, using repulsive action to avoid it and attack when an opportunity arose. The masked creature roared and thrust claws made of the same black tendrils that formed its shape into the tempest, twisting the chakra to form a pair of dragons that flew through the air, spearing their way towards Hinata and Naruto's clone. Despite the dragon's quick movement, the clone was trapped in the splash area and subsequently left damp, but poised to provide assistance. Hinata's speed was slower, causing her to hold back and gather chakra for an air palm. She was about to attack the dragon when it came into contact, but she felt someone grab her by the shoulders and put her in their place. The attack on Hinata was witnessed by her own, as she was able to defend herself against Naruto's clone. He didn't sacrifice himself for that reason. He was a duplicate, salvageable when she wasn't. She redirected the chakra she accumulated to her existing chakra supply and sought out a spot that allowed her to contribute. After easing their burden of dealing with the water tempest, the disguised creature charged at the Naruto clone in unison. Hinata utilized an air palm to catch it, but it clipped its shoulder area and caused it to skim off course. A sweaty clone entered behind the mask, creating a spiral of energy that rippled around his palm. The creature reacted by jumping on the clone and crushing him between the rock and its claws. Two blades made of wind chakra were wielded by the rest of Naruto as it blew up in smoke and became congested with a pair of scissors. Hinata ran towards the Naruto clone after witnessing the wind-style jutsu being transformed by the creature that cut through a water wall. The water wall erupted into a crashing wave that bounced towards them, but Hinata was ready to move. "Say yes, Naruto," she said. She would come to his aid this time. With her hand pressed to her chest, Hinata stood motionless and used the raised fingers to create a chakra that was sharper than any blade. The wave surge persisted, yet Hinata remained unfazed. Despite the pain and danger caused by the masked beast, she refused to give up. Protective 8 trigrams, 64 palms. She waved her right and left hands together, forming an impregnable wall around herself and Naruto's clone with blades of thin chakra. She had no chance of defending herself against any water, and by the time she finished her jutsu, she had completely destroyed the oncoming wave. The Naruto clone declared, "It's time to finish this." Following the lead of Naruto, Hinata created another clone to collaborate with him. The masked creature launched a vast water flow to prevent them from moving, but they separated around it. Hinata smudged her hands and forcefully pushed both palms into the water. She winced and bit back the pain that swelled around her palm and stomach, then passed through more hand seals and transformed the scattered water into a gentle mist, which Hinata redirected around herself, Naruto's clones, and the mask-wielding dragon. A Naruto's clone, just like her, released a smoke bomb that produced red smoke, effectively covering the masked beast. In the absence of sight, Hinata hurriedly ran and formed chakra in her palms once more. The creature launched a second water jet towards her, but she bent her back just inches away from the ground. The spiraling sphere caused the jet to be protruded as one of Naruto's clones barreled towards it. Hinata slithered forward and kept running, her teeth being fiercely clenched against the force of her stomach. The second clone used his sword to inflict a wound on the masked beast, which then flew into the air and punched it with her twin lion fists. The mask's shattering was audible to her, and the masked creature wobbled until it became nothing more than a bundle of tendrils without any chakra to guide it. The two clones of Naruto looked at her with a smile. "We were able to overcome it," declared one of them. Hinata's work was awe-inspiring. Holding her stomach, Hinata smiled exhausted. "Naruto, I am grateful for your contribution to the story." Their work was accomplished. The original Naruto was still grappling with the masked creature that could use fire, while Shikamaru and Shizune were dealing with Haiden. Although Kakuzu had not woken up yet, he would do so soon. Moreover, the ghostly entity of lightning was still in full swing, which meant that Hinata and their fellow fighters were still vulnerable. Her fear of quailing didn't prevent her from doing so. In fact, it's not even close to that. If Naruto was truly a Jinchuriki, his danger level would have been higher than that of the others. She would persist in her fight until Naruto and the other members of their team emerged victorious. Haiden walked gracefully past Shikamaru's shadows with great skill. He had to admit that his quick-witted manner was quite impressive. The last 5 minutes of his career were being used to pin him down, but it was proving to be a real challenge. Initially, it seemed unlikely that an individual of near immersion would want to avoid harm, but his every move made him closer. Nearer to obtaining blood. Whenever Haiden had an opening, he would go after Shizune to ruin their chances of recovery. She exhibited impressive dodging skills and effortlessly navigated Haiden's attacks with the same level of precision as him. Despite their 4 previous clashes, Haiden was unsuccessful in saving Shizune. He was almost scratching her, which was the problem. Shizune was thrown by Haiden with an unorthodox roundhouse kick, forcing Shikamaru to catch him with his shadow and drag her away from his whirling scythe. It was possible for her to evade it, but he couldn't take that risk when a third party could have safeguarded her. Fortunately, it was only the one occasion he had to do it. Despite the fact that Shikamaru was briefly embroiled in the conflict, Haiden quickly broke away from Shizune and followed him like a blood-stained shark. Although he tried his hardest to avoid Haiden, it was only his shadows that kept him from closing in, repeating the same mistake. Shikamaru guided Haiden into a familiar forest, but they were not getting nearer to taking him up. Haiden was compelled to chase after Shizune when he attempted to take advantage of his attention. "It's time to reconsider the course of action." Shikamaru looked at Shizune and gave her the indications for double and rock. She nodded in agreement. Shikamaru underwent a short hand-seal combination during Haiden's pursuit of him the next time. "Earth style, rising earth spears," shouted Haiden. Shikamaru slammed his hands on the ground to create a gap in the earth and then launched rock and earth spears into the air. Haiden leveraged his chakra to jump onto the tip of a spear and propel himself away from it. His posture was centered on the back of his frame. Haiden was the target of a kunai attack by Shikamaru. Haiden was ready to redirect it. A sly smile tugged at Shikamaru's throat. The kunai's explosion was caused by fire. Shikamaru narrowed the gap between them while Haiden remained unscathed. Shizune gave a wink to him as he looked at him. "The knot in my back was removed by the explosion," said Haiden. "Is that all you have?" Shikamaru asked. "Just wait for it, folks. I'll be able to do this for the rest of the day." Haiden grinned at them both before lifting his unblemished red sledgehammer onto his shoulder. "Are you able to ask the same question from heathens?" Shizune's chakra reserves were affected by the use of his shadows, despite not expelling much energy from her clones. Haiden's attacks were hardly driven by any chakra, and even if he lost all these chakras, it probably wouldn't have an impact on his ability to become immortal. The reason behind Haiden's treacherous behavior was due to this. There was no way to stop him for long, and one slip-up could potentially end the fight. He went against the customary beliefs that were present during ninja confrontations, which was why Shikamaru was afraid of facing him again. Shikamaru sighed. His thinking would result in him losing the fight. Through the use of smoke bombs, Naruto was able to separate Kakuzu from Haiden, leading to his arrest and Shizen's subsequent detachment. Shikamaru observed that there were only a few trees that appeared pale when he surveying the area, even though the overall number had decreased as they neared the fringes of the wasteland. They didn't offer him too much protection, but the sun provided them with some shade. This was something that Haiden was cognizant of. A novel scheme was starting to emerge. If this didn't work out, he would give it his all and win. Shikamaru questioned why someone who was attracted to him might join the Akatsuki. Haiden quipped, "What's the point of killing tailed beasts in order to serve your Jashin? Is it not your intention to devote yourself entirely to the Lord?" "I'm not sure. Regardless of my motives, we will continue the fight because I have to kill you. If I do, I'll take your friend and attempt to devour an albatross by force." Shikamaru's expression was one of disgust, as he frowned and bit back his tongue. The savagery of Haiden made him feel as though he was crawling. Despite his experience fighting against ninjas who had a passion for killing, Haiden was not motivated by greed or violence. "Say, humor me, it's good. If it makes you realize the magnificence of Lord Jashin's reputation, please take this opportunity to add your own. I'm uncertain whether taking the tailed beasts would be of great value, but the Akatsuki allows me to engage in combat with the most powerful creatures, including the numerous Jinchuriki. By defeating them, he demonstrated that the only viable agreement to make is to serve Lord Jashin with all your heart and soul." Haiden scowled at the statement, "You don't care about the lives you end up with." "I'm not sure why I should have cared about Kakuzu being poisoned, but did you realize that it was a possibility and didn't want to risk harming him? He was your foe, and those who oppose you must be killed. It's not your fault of being like that. The foundation of this world was violence, and to become a ninja is to perpetuate that violence. I didn't perceive you as a peaceful individual, just like how you enjoy killing in the name of Jashin." He had a manic smile on his face. "Sissies and yellow-bellied cowards are the ones who should not practice pacifism. If I commit my pact to serving Lord Jashin, the only way they can ever fulfill is by killing and sacrificing others in their honor. I don't need to embellish my motives for murder with money, justice, or any other means, for the way of Jashin is the most pure way of living," said Shikamaru. Upon listening to Haiden's explanation, he came to the realization that his reasons for fighting were not just or lesser than those of others. He wasn't quite as strong as Naruto, lacking the belief in Haiden, his father's wisdom or Asuma confidence either, but he could still come to terms with his reasons for fighting. Shikamaru pointed to Shizune and signaled her for a flash. "You're in control, and I'm in charge, but you'll still be able to capture Naruto. That's not something I'm willing to allow to happen." Haiden expressed his laughter through the act. Shadow Man, Shikamaru sunk into the ground and maneuvered through it, appearing directly in front of an orange tree as Haiden and Shizune engaged in a game of cat and mouse. He breathed deeply and retreated into his contemplative state, anticipating the moment when he would finally move on. Haiden took the bait as expected, but only kicked Shizune once in the stomach. She was only 1 inch away from the object and it rolled back, stopping shortly after. Haiden approached Shikamaru and subsequently launched his scythe. Shikamaru held his hands in the rat seal while Haiden tugged on the rope that was fastened to the end of the tool and flicked it towards him. Haiden said, "It was a nice experience. Is death imminent?" Shikamaru widened his shadow to the maximum extent, splitting it into two. One pursued Haiden and the other proceeded further ahead. Like saucers, Shizune's eyes widened. "Complete the shadow possession." Shortly after, they exchanged a few words and Haiden began to laugh aloud. Shizune was stranded between a tree and the brink of death, while it's known that both would be sacrificed to Lord Jashin. With all the power in the world at his disposal, the Akatsuki ninja swinged his scythe, but Shizune kept walking forward and grimaced. She yelled out, "Take this." A bomb was thrown at her feet. Blood was drawn from her as the scythe's 3 blades sheared past her leather jacket and penetrated her skin. Haiden yelled out with a loud, yes. The bomb exploded, and light shone upon Haiden. It was glaringly apparent. Shikamaru gnawed his teeth. Is it better to wait for now or avoid it altogether? He blew off all the hand seals in the combination as quickly as possible. Haiden and Shizun were ensnared by a dome made of earth that held them over the tree. He was not done yet. Shikamaru drew his shadow into the hole and started working. Haiden let out a loud scream that could be heard through the dome. Shikamaru pulled the dome back into the earth and observed his work as the light faded. Shadows penetrating his body repeatedly made Haiden pincushion-like, leaning against the tree. As he leaned against his harnesses, blood billowed from rapidly healing wounds. He was still in the process of getting things done. Shikamaru crossed his fingers into a cross ceiling. Haiden was approached by a shadow clone who used ninja wire to wrap himself around his stomach and cover his arms and legs. After Haiden was bound, Shikamaru's shadow clone retorted and severed his head from his shoulders. After his head hit the ground, Shikamaru dislodged his jutsu and the shadow clone was summoned to assist. He stumbled on his kneecap. Haiden's apprehension. It was ultimately finished. It would have been illogical to use the shadow stitching jutsu in his manner, especially against someone as skilled as Haiden. It was necessary for him to devise a means of making the impossible achievable. Shizun had given Haiden the distraction he needed to finally claim his enemy's blood, and it was this flash of light that hit him squarely in the face. After catching Haiden in his shadow, he would be aware of his position. Afterward, he utilized the light to fast-track Haiden's climb into the tree. Haiden would be completely surrounded by darkness when the light came to an end, rendering his shadows ineffective. The deal was shattered when he was beheaded. Although he didn't frequently use the tant, it had been beneficial for him. Even if Haiden missed out on something for 1 second, lost chakra, or made an error, he would still be standing. Everything, from the shadow substitution to Shizun's contribution to distracting Haiden, including the creation of the Earth Dome and his use of a shadow clone jutsu, had to be flawless. He would not be given a second chance. Nevertheless, he was not troubled. He spent a significant amount of time contemplating how to triumph over Haiden and made sure to be prepared when the time came. A slender hand rested on his shoulder. Shizun gazed at him with a calm smile on her face. Shizun placed his other hand on his shoulder and he felt her replenish his reserves through additional chakras. It was not even half of his total, but it was a significant increase from the previous period. He got up and smiled at Shizun. Thanks, Shizun. At this moment, I am concerned about my left eye's condition. Can you confirm if everything is all right? We accomplished it. Yeah, please. He smirked. We were aware of it. It was a risky decision to ask her to assist him in his plan. In addition to her role as a medic, she was also the Hokage's first student. Shizun, a medic trained by Tsunade, was limited to fighting when her fellow soldiers were incapacitated due to her responsibility to save their lives. The shadow clone jutsu allowed her to bypass this decision, as she would still be performing her job, but it necessitated a considerable amount of chakra to use. Despite being inspired by Naruto, he had to work hard to make it through the jutsu. He looked back at Haiden's mouth and nodded, ignoring the profanity that was emanating from his mouth. Haiden had been defeated by him today, proving his worth. Moreover, he safeguarded Shizun, Hinata, and Naruto from the fury of Haiden. His motivation for fighting was to protect his fellow soldiers from mortality, thereby passing on their knowledge and preventing the will of fire from being lost. Denying what he was capable of, thinking hard about it, would prevent him from doing what needed to be done. Nonetheless, the conflict was not conclusive. He had to assist Naruto and Hinata in defeating the masked monsters and safeguarding them from Kakuzu's attacks. He would ensure that Kakuzu was defeated before the day had come to an end. Irrespective of the circumstances. The fire mask was relentless in its pursuit of it, and Naruto had to jump from one tree to another to avoid its savage sprays, determined to take down the deadly weapon. Due to its complex composition of chakra and lack of nervous system control, Genjutsu failed to function properly. While Naruto was moving at a fast pace, the fire mask's cunning prevented him from engaging in combat at close range. Naruto's plan to kill his enemies was thwarted by the demise of shadow clones. He was unsuccessful in his attempt to use fire as a means of fighting the fire. His attacks were too much for his fire mask to handle, so the only way he could deflect them was by using it. If he attempted to bring it back to the water, it would either stay at a distance or use rinsing fire to burn away the liquid. Due to his inability to create his own water sources and carrying only one water scroll, Shikamaru was out of luck on that front. Regrettably, Kakuzu had not woken up yet. It appeared unlikely, but the man had a heart full of energy, with two additional individuals quickly joining him. Shizen's clone was guarding it without being directly in the line of fire of the lightning mask, ready to help him or Hinata should something need to happen. The fire mask would only wear him down and crush him if not for his own good. He would have had to adjust his behavior accordingly. Following his landing on a branch, Naruto ran and jumped off the branch before plunging down to the ground below. He was being trailed, but that wasn't a problem. Naruto smashed his thumb, sawed through hand signals, and asked for assistance. After answering Gamatatsu's call, he had grown big enough to allow Naruto to land on his head without any harm to the yellow toad. Naruto said, "It's time to submerge him." Naruto replicated their practices by preparing a hand-seal combination, while Gamatatsu started to balloon outward and in size. Naruto yelled, "Now," as the fire mask moved closer to them. Gamatatsu ejected a massive water cannon, and Naruto combined it with Spitfire of wind energy. Together, they created a plume of water that overwhelmed the fire mask, moving at an alarming pace towards it. The fire mask, caught in the air, retaliated by throwing 3 fireballs before turning into a massive tornado of fire that turned blue at its extremities. After devouring the fireballs, the wind-style water cannon engaged in a punch-and-shoot match with the fiery tornado, pitting both jutsu pushers against each other. The tornado was blown through by Naruto and Gamatatsu's combined efforts, striking the fire mask straight on its front. The object fell to the ground, and Naruto jumped off Gamatatsu's head, running towards the spot where the fire mask would collide. Naruto was about to smuggle 2 Raisengans into its mask, but a burst of forked lightning ignited in front of him, leaving behind Nippies and preventing his attacker. The mask of lightning slipped in front of him, and Naruto observed Kakuzu rise as he fell down. The outcome was unsatisfactory. The fire mask was barely visible, but Kakuzu could easily retract it. Despite this, wind chakra was stronger than lightning, and Gamatatsu had jumped to his defense. Naruto expressed gratitude to Gamatatsu for the aid, briefly giving the toad a smile. Gamatatsu's reply was characterized by a smile. "I've gained more experience with jutsu, so I'm prepared to fight, Naruto," he exclaimed. "Excellent. Obtain assistance to eliminate the monstrous creature with the red lips hiding among the masks. I'll confront the person with the yellow nose." I'll take it." Despite using additional hand seals and blowing air, Naruto chose to focus on the lightning mask instead of attacking it with a powerful gust of wind. A robust column of earth obstructed the winds, and as they subsided, the wall transformed into a deluge of shrapnel when it dissipated. Naruto chose to leap onto Gamatatsu's head instead of trying to take them under his arm. Squeeze! They flew high into the sky, evading the earth-style assault as it was torn apart by the forked lightning from their lightning masks. He looked around and realized that Hinata was coming his way, while Shikamaru had just gained the ability to view it through his sensor. Shizen was trailing Shikamaru, but her clone was not present. After waking up, Kakuzu was racing towards his loved ones. Gamatatsu was touched by Naruto, and the toad nodded in response. Together, They launched a water bullet that stopped Kakuzu from retrieving his prize. Naruto then dropped it quickly and the pair fell into each other's wake. The landing spot became inundated with rocky spikes, leading Naruto to scramble to avoid the collision. He jumped off Gametatsu's head and dived, pushing 2 Raisengans into the spike trap. The impact created a crater that softened his landing. Although Gametatsu landed with him, Kakuzu had won his affection during the time it took for him to land. Naruto smirked in wonder. "You're still breathing, huh? This isn't your first time for me having been poisoned, but I'm pretty sure I could have done better otherwise." I must state, the mixture in that smoke was a completely different sensation. For someone who has seen things from my perspective, it's quite unusual. His Akatsuki cloak had been taken off his hands, leaving him with a torn sleeveless blue vest and matching pants. He had a closed mouth, but when he spoke, his mouth moved, and his tendrils were tearing and gnashing. Naruto Uzumaki's death was almost certain, as Kakuzu stated, "No one has come closer than you to kill me." His pupils were dilated by fury as his bloodshot eyes receded. "You're deserving of recognition for that achievement. However, I will be capturing you, and once the 9 tails are taken away from you physically, your heart will join my camera." Naruto scowled at the question, "What is your understanding of the kidnapping of Jinchuriki?" "I am a paid employee of the Akatsuki, and my job is in line with this policy. It has made me extremely wealthy, which is unmatched by anything else. In the event that I am not compensated, I will depart and work in different industries." Kakuzu applauded and remarked, "What's the point of throwing money at others when you can pay me for more than Akatsuki?" "Yes, of course. You are not financially capable of paying me and will never be able to do so. I'm not going to compensate you, and I won't be begging for my life. I will crush you and bring you to justice." Naruto swore. "I'm going to give you your bounty," she said. The maniac's head snapped as he contemplated the idea of killing him for financial gain. The only authentic virtue is the money. The strong are the ones who define justice, and peace is never a viable solution to the present challenges. Faith, friendship, and loyalty to one another are nonsensical and can unravel if the other party fails to maintain their commitment. Money is a must-have for everyone, considering that money grants resources, influence leads to power, and so does influence. The rules are determined by the authority that governs. Naruto held his tongue and stared at Kakuzu with suspicion, stating that Kroki cash is the most trustworthy option. It's a given that money was significant, but Kakuzu turned it into something disgusting. Naruto possesses the ability to comprehend how Kakuzu could have become disillusioned with the functioning of ninja villages after leaving his home to pursue wealth and power. He had to rely on himself, love no one, and use money to achieve his goals. He was aware that doing anything would not aid him in overcoming his pain or loss. His friendships were the cause of that. Kakuzu's beliefs and convictions were irrelevant to what he fought for or the extent of his actions. He had a motive for killing Kakuzu only because it was the only way he would fulfill his agreement. In order to survive, he must fight until his death. Naruto suggested that it could be accurate, stating, "I think that's probably accurate. I'm not a fan of that sort of thing, I don't think it's appropriate. I never asked to be a Jinchuriki. If you're going to come after me because of that, I'll make sure it's the last thing you ever want to do in your life. We'll be able to speculate on that." Kakuzu rolled his shoulders and then suddenly the fire and lighting masks appeared on his back. The battlefield was filled with air, and Kakuzu struck it with a black fist that had earth chakras. Kakuzu sprinted towards Hinata, and they both engaged in a short, but intense session of taijutsu, where their fist actions were the only physical demonstration. After hitting Kakuzu's chakra points with his hip, Hinata was able to escape but managed to flee from the blast of tendrils that hit her as she flashed lightning in her right palm. Gametatsu pumped it full of water, giving Naruto the chance to exit the crater. Kakuzu had intended to accompany Hinata, but his plan was foiled when he flew through hand seals at a phenomenally fast pace, causing the earth to split and spike around the crater to impale Gamatsu. The yellow toad flew up into the sky, but Kakuzu struck with his forked lightning. The only thing that prevented Gamatsu from being burned by Kakuzu was Naruto's swift wind blast. He sprinted towards his summoned companion, grasping it in his palm. Naruto said, "Gamatsu, I think it's time for you to go home." His smile was genuine but tight-fitting. "If I need you, I'll call them again," Gamatsu said, gesturing to Kakuzu before turning his dopey gaze back at Naruto. "Agreed. Let's go for some snacks," he said with a smile. "Looking forward to it." With a happy expression, Gamatsu returned to his home. Kakuzu chuckled and made his way towards Naruto without delay. Naruto quickly fired at him, but Kakuzu's fire ricochets over him and creates a cloud of smoke. With the Rasengan on his back, Naruto used it as cover to scuffle Kakuzu. In spite of this, Kakuzu jumped once again and collided with the earth, causing Naruto to fall down. With a powerful kick, he lunged at Naruto and pulled him out of the smoke cloud. Naruto regained his footing, but Kakuzu's attack was stopped by a trench knife inflicted on him. Shikamaru had arrived, but Naruto noticed that Kakuzu had lost one of his arms when he looked back at him. The object burst, seized the knife, and returned towards Shikamaru, who deflected it with his tantrum. Naruto opted to regroup with his companions just 100 meters away from Kakuzawa. When Naruto arrived, Shikamaru was just behind him and had the same idea. Shizune and Shikamaru had to patch up their injuries while healing, but Hinata was able to recuperate with only minor dirt marks and significant chakra loss. Naruto inquired of Haiden's whereabouts. "Haiden has been rendered ineffective," Shizune declared. "He has a shadow clone who is keeping watch over him." "Good. There's only one Akatsuki left to complete the journey." Kakuzu expressed his laughter through a facepalm exchange. His arms were reattached to his body. "I expected I would be honored, but it's irrelevant as someone has finally let the joke slip away, and I'm left with 2 broken hearts. Fortunately, there are 3 replacements in front of me." With Naruto's sensor, Kakuzu was surrounded by an earthen wall and began to molt as he vomited gray tendrils on his body, which Naruto used to twist his shape. Naruto smirked in wonder. They yelled out, "Split up!" And when Kakuzu brought down the wall, a multitude of fire and lightning masks were on his face, wrapped in tendrils that extended from his shoulders into tentacles that protruded like X-Force. The lightning mask's mouth arose. Naruto created a clone, ready to fight the lightning with the wind. Rather than standing his ground, Naruto tried to avoid being hit by a jet of fiery flames from behind the mask. Kakuzu launched a massive lightning strike at Hinata, but she prevented it by using her own lightning in the form of chakra palms. Despite being overwhelmed by the force of the attack, she managed to flee the scene. Her chakra-based nature was the root of her problem, after all. After Shikamaru emitted his shadows, Kakuzu was met with an act of force as he slapped his hands together and forced 2 tentacles into the ground. The earth erupted and crumbled onto itself. The sight was impressive, but Kakuzu's focus on Shikamaru was diverting his attention. Naruto utilized it to ensnare him in a genjutsu that would make him believe that his fire mask was lightning and his lightning mask burned. He quickly fired several wind bullets at Kakuzu's fire mask as his clone revolved around him. Kakuzu seemingly fired upon him with lightning, but the wind bullets pierced through it and the shot was dispersed by a fire shield. Before the clone could counterpunch, it was launched into Hinata and placed in Naruto's tentacle. Shikamaru successfully evaded the fissure and threw an exploding kunai into the air before fleeing to Kakuzu. Kakuzu managed to dodge the explosion entirely and single-slammed Shikamaru with twin lightning blasts, despite his accurate target. Naruto geared up to fight the wind, but Kakuzu wasted no time and fired a massive shot. An air palm was used to divert the fireball away from Hinata, who was panting heavily as she rushed towards him. Naruto looked at Shizune, and she joined Hinata's side, increasing her chakra reserves, while his clone stayed put to protect them. Shikamaru was able to avoid the lightning and sink into the earth, but Kakuzu was still getting his way. Just beneath Kakuzu, Shikamaru re-emerged within 20 meters. Naruto hurriedly approached the Akatsuki ninja, but Kakuzu advanced towards Shikamaru before he could intervene, leaving him powerless as Kakeyuzu used sharp tendrils to strike Shikajaba with his flak jacket. After a moment of silence, Shikamaru collapsed and his hands were still wrapped in the rat seal, with his shadow returning to its original form. Naruto's jaws drooped, his mouth contorted. Blood oozed from his friend's wound, an overabundance of blood. It was a shade of intense red, very vivid. He felt that everything was a shade of red. You won't be saved by luck again. With his tendrils drenched, Kakuzu struck once more, targeting Shikamaru's heart. Naruto used a blood-red chakra claw to grasp Kakuzu's tendrils with his fingers. Naruto yelled out, "You are strong," and sent Kakuzu running with a massive shockwave that destroyed the earth and expanded the gap nearby. Despite landing on solid ground, the Akatsuki killer's eyes caught his gaze as he fell to his feet. He let out a quick sneeze, then disappeared into thin air. The blood from Naruto's skin disintegrating caused 5 tails to burst out from his tailbone, forming a thick blanket of dark red chakras around his body. The shroud's impact on his body was so profound that his hands became its claws, and the rest of his physical makeup was trailed by a mysterious spiderweb. He was unable to detect the dispelling of his clone, feeling overwhelmed by the discomfort and the unbearable pain it caused, leading him to cry in agony. His thoughts were consumed by incandescent fury, and he now had a single undeniable wish, to make Kakuzu pay for his actions against his best friend. Kakuzu sprinted after him, but Naruto used his 5 tails to pull and the tentacles eventually split into a mass of fiery liquid. Fire and lightning charged up from both sides, but Naruto clung Kakuzu's chest with his clawed feet before leaping off, suspended high and deeply into the sky. Naruto was suddenly pelted with earthen spears, thundering from above by lightning and scorching white-hot fire as he fell on a dead tree, but remained unperturbed. In comparison to his power, this was utterly pointless. Naruto's mouth was surrounded by red and blue orbs that formed a massive, heavy black ball after they emanated from the dark shroud. He ingested it, and then unleashed a red blast that destroyed Kakuzu's assault and the earth walls he had built and crashed into the man with impunity. Kakuzu's fire and lightning masks were ruined and the dust settled, leading to all surrounding material being turned into ash. Despite the situation, the man was still standing and his skin was entirely black from his defensive jutsu, rather than Naruto's attack. He was not interested in seeing that. The consequences of Kakuzu's actions against Shikamaru were costly. He had to make the payment. Naruto's first move was to slice his stomach open. When Kakuzu was incapacitated and unable to move, Naruto would execute him and demonstrate to the Akatsuki that no one could challenge the 9-tailed fox's might. He surpassed his previous speed by running on all fours. Kakuzu threw debris onto the ground to defend himself, but Naruto slashed through it with his tails and a claw, flinging him to the floor. He heard female voices urging him to stop and acknowledged the potential consequences, but they had no authority over him. It wasn't until he declared it was over that the fight came to a close. Naruto's growl was heard as he reached his death. This mission was under his leadership, and he would fulfill it on his terms. Naruto's entire being was enraged by the term one and only, which did not include Hinata, Shizune, Tsunade, or anyone else. His task was to carry out his mission. He couldn't shake off the thought. He was under supervision. Naruto Uzumaki is the fictional character created by Hideki Ishiguro. Despite his fear of losing his own heart, Kakuzu stood up and fought with determination, determined to fight for his survival. Naruto strode through hand seals, with the exception of one jutsu. He had no other option but to make use of it. On the last seal, Kakuzu's reformed tendrils wrapped around each other, wrapping around his arms and legs, and covering his mouth and the rest of his face, turning the tendilna that helped him survive into a cocoon. Kakuzu was restrained by the authentic Genjutsu as Naruto roared once more, but Shikamaru couldn't save him. Before he lost his mind again, Shikamaru could still be saved. Naruto observed Shikamaru holding his stomach to prevent further bleeding while administering medicine to his wounds. He had done a horrific amount of damage, but he was capable of healing him like the Nine-Tails healed Yujito. As he approached, Hinata's run towards him caused his head to twist. She was surrounded by someone with a familiar yet unfamiliar chakra, and her hands were flowing into seals. Naruto rebelled against Shikamaru by jumping over him and using his long chakra claw to attack him, but a wooden dragon held the young boy's body in its grasp. He struggled with the dragon and its obstinate parent who held his back from Shikamaru, but it persisted until Naruto released him. Subsequently, more wooden snakes were added to connect Naruto's limbs. Naruto looked into the newcomer's eyes and observed that their black eyes were darker than any abyss. The man was so desperate to be killed that he continued to writhe and scream against his bindings. 10 wooden pillars with black spikes were present, and Naruto was completely surrounded by them. With his arm facing outward, the newcomer spoke. The chakra of the nine-tailed fox was stripped from Naruto's chakra when he felt like his skin was dying on the crystal that illuminated his neck. Naruto fainted, but he persuaded himself to stay alert. Shikamaru's well-being was guaranteed by his actions. Shizune was advancing towards healing Shikamaru's injuries. At her side, a person in dark green was crawling out of his skin with bugs. The newcomer was approaching him, along with Hinata and a blonde woman with fervent admirers. What was going on with her? "Don't worry, Naruto," the new addition exclaimed. "You did a good job," she said. "Pause and enjoy yourself. We'll proceed with the task from here." What is the explanation for this statement? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button and subscribe for more content. Support the original author by clicking their profile link in the pinned comment of the first video of this series. They deserve the love. Want early access and exclusive content? Join my Patreon community, link below. Your support fuels these videos. Drop a comment with your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next video. Stay entertained, stay safe.